Good evening, virtual Pub Talk audience. My name is Shannon Kelly, and I'm so happy to be back hosting Edco's Pub Talk live from beautiful Bend, Oregon. Although we're not together in person at McMenamins tonight, we're going to have a great event, and we're so glad you could join us. It's the end of the year, and we should celebrate. So I get the privilege of joining you as MC tonight, thanks to our new MC sponsor, OSU Cascades. Did you know that OSU Cascades Co-Lab provides micro interns to help you with your business planning, marketing, website, event management, or software development needs? These interns work remotely and do over 300 hours of work per month for businesses and nonprofits in the community to help them launch new products or services. For more information, contact Adam Krenicki or go to osukascades.edu/co-lab. O-Lab. Because OSU Cascades is also a Platinum Edco board member and because it's college football season, go Beavers. You're welcome, Aaron Riley. How was the highlight video from the Bend Venture Conference last month? Oh, let's take a look. Last month, we were lucky enough to gather hundreds of attendees safely across multiple downtown venues, as well as several hundred more virtually to host the 17th annual Bend Venture Conference. The BBC investors and fund were able to invest $503,000 in 6 early stage companies, and that's just the beginning. I had the privilege of emceeing the event. I enjoyed every moment of it, and there were just so many moving parts, but it went off so well, and we were just so grateful. So the 14 finalists are working hard to make it happen. If you want to check out BBC 2020, go to Edco's website and learn and find our YouTube page. There's a lot to learn there. We're able to continue with Pub Talk virtually this evening thanks to our generous event sponsors, many of which are returning and doing so in a pandemic to make sure that Pub Talk soldiers on. Their support is not only for Edco and Pub Talk tonight, but for these small, early stage and growing businesses, for hustling entrepreneurs pushing harder than most during COVID times to keep climbing. And for these reasons and so many more, Team Edco is sincerely grateful. I'd like to introduce each of tonight's Pub Talk title sponsors. Brad Garriguez, Chief Marketing Officer with Providence Health Plan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Garriguez, and I'm with Providence Health Plan. As a proud sponsor of Edco and tonight's Pub Talk, we're excited to see the rising stars that will be on stage. Providence Health Plan has been serving the Central Oregon community for over 35 years, and Providence St. Joseph Health has been serving the Pacific Northwest for over 160 years. We're excited about our ability to partner and support our communities throughout the region. We look forward to tonight's talk and wish you well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad. It's wonderful to have you and Providence Health Plan on board. Next up, Jordan Smith, President and CEO at VLOC Systems.
Hey, good afternoon, Pub Talk. Jordan Smith here with VLOC Systems. Thanks for joining us again virtually as we have pivoted in light of all the changes. It's pretty awesome to see Edco do that and keep us all engaged and meeting together and learning about the awesome things that are going on in the business community here in Central Oregon. At VLOC Systems, we love to take part in that. We are Central Oregon's favorite IT consultant. So we join our clients and partner with them to assess their technology and make sure that we're improving the things that they need to do what's important for them. So if you have any IT needs at all, we're certainly here to help. Reach out, go to our website or chat us online here within Pub Talk. And I'd love to connect with you guys. Otherwise, I'll pass it back to Edco and the team to take us on through another exciting evening at a virtual Pub Talk. Thanks, guys.
Person and miss your beard too. Next up, Kurt Barker, attorney and partner at Carnot Peterson.
Hey, Pub Talk. I'm Kurt Barker from Carnot Peterson. I wish I was with you having a beer face-to-face tonight. I'm going to quickly share a public service announcement, lawyer style. Sharing a screen here, you'll see there's some key deadlines coming up for all workplaces. Please, please, please make sure that your business is on top of these, including things like the deadline of December 7th. Coming fast. Get an exposure risk assessment and infection control plan done. You might want to take a screenshot of this page or just simply go back to review the video from Edco. Whoa, that was way too heavy. Let's do 3 things to be thankful for. Number 1, snow and smoke-free air. Very, very grateful. Only 42 days left in 2020. We can make it. And, oh yeah, thankful for Edco and Pub Talk too. Everyone, enjoy the show. Thanks for tuning in.
Oh, I'm with you, Kurt. Thank you so much. I swear I've learned more from Kurt's updates this year than my entire senior year of high school. All right, next up, Corey Allen, SVP and Commercial Banking Team Leader at Columbia Bank. Corey, what do you got for us?
I'm Corey Allen, Commercial Banking Team Leader for Columbia Bank here in Central Oregon. I got to be honest, the last time I did this, I had really hoped it was going to be the last time I had to do this virtually. But it wouldn't be 2020 without having a few extra curveballs thrown our way to wrap out the year. And don't be surprised there's a few more to come because we're not quite there yet. Also, I'm a big proponent and believer in focusing on the controllables. In fact, if you've known me for a while or have ever worked with me in the past, you may know one of my favorite movie quotes is, "I didn't create this situation, I'm just dealing with it." We may not be able to control a global pandemic, but what we can control is how we show up every day and our attitudes to work through this situation. With that in mind, I challenge you and myself to make the best of the situation and do all that you can to help support our local community. Think about shopping local. Pick up a local gift card. Instead of ordering from Amazon or putting that next item in your cart, think about if there's a local business you may be able to support instead. I mean, Jeff Bezos is worth $200 billion now. In fact, I think his net worth's gone up $85 billion in 2020 alone. Now, hey, don't get me wrong. I love Amazon. I'm just asking you to think twice if there may be another option and you may be able to help support a local business instead. You may have to pay a few extra bucks, but if we all chip in, we can make a big difference to local businesses that are the backbone of our community. Lastly, if you're a local business owner or a financial person working for a local company and looking to borrow traditional financing, I ask you to please speak with myself or another Columbia Bank employee, as we're here, we're open, and we're still lending out money into our communities. And we love the opportunity to earn your business. With that said, mask up, be safe, have a great Thanksgiving, and hope to see you all soon. Cheers.
Thanks, Corey. Well said. I appreciate that message very much. Thank you to all of our Pub Talk title sponsors. We're so grateful for your support and for your presence with us here tonight. And a little more gratitude and acknowledgement. We are, if you're joining us in Central Oregon, you're sitting and standing on Warm Springs land. So we take a moment to acknowledge Warm Springs, Paiute, and Wasco tribes. And we can take that one step further by becoming really great stewards of this land, carrying it forward. My next guest, if you will, is Edco CEO Roger Lee for a Director's Minute. Roger, what do you have for us tonight?
Thanks, Shannon. It's great to be back with you for Pub Talk, although we hope we'll be in person sometime very soon. For my Director's Minute, just a few comments about kind of what's going on and around the entrepreneurship world. M&A activity in our regions heated up this past year with two of our region's top 20 employers, Les Schwab and Consumer Cellular, both being sold to private equity firms. And earlier this year, 5 Talent Software sold to Effectual, Straw Propeller was acquired by Indulgent Foods, and within the past 12 months, Silly Pint became part of E&A Industries. That's a lot of activity in some iconic large and small companies in our region. While time will tell how these transactions play out for Central Oregon and our economy, acquisitions have, on average, been good for our region. They've allowed the founders and investors an exit with a return on their hard work and risk capital. More importantly, acquisition often puts fuel in the tank to help acquired businesses grow in a way they couldn't do organically. Yes, they can also mean that the operations leave our area, which makes the work of fostering entrepreneurship all the more important to fill the ranks and help create the next generation of jobs and innovations. And speaking of jobs and innovation, we are very pleased to see the public announcement in GeekWire this week and other media about Volanzi, a Bay Area UAV and logistics company that Edco has been working with to recruit to the region for the past 18 months. With a successful $50 million equity round, the company is expanding its manufacturing, engineering, and testing in Central Oregon, with operations both in Bend and Prineville. It's not just the kind of company that's going to help our economy rebound from the impacts of COVID-19. It'll take advantage of the supply chain that exists here around advanced composites, metal machining, and electronics that'll hire Central Oregonians. And speaking of hiring, did I mention that we have another outstanding OSU Cascade student as our summer-fall intern this year? Cameron Burns, who hails from the Redmond area, has been a phenomenal addition to the Edco team. But we have a saying, the actual internship may not be gainful employment, but it should lead to gainful employment. And Cameron's been on the lookout for career opportunities. So if you're looking for an articulate, intelligent, and hardworking person to add to your team, let us know. He started his degree in computer science, but is finishing out in business administration, a combo that he's effectively deployed during his time with us, working on both BVC and Edco websites. So with that, I'll wrap up by saying last but not least, we're just a week away from Thanksgiving. And despite 2020 being a year we'd all like to forget, we have much to be thankful for. We get to live in this amazing place of the world. We have a super supportive and collaborative community and a truly amazing entrepreneurs, some of whom we'll get to hear from tonight. We're so thankful for our sponsors and members that keep the lights on and the work of Edco happening. If you're a returning member or just joined the ranks, thank you for finding a way to continue your support of the work we do through hard times. It makes a difference, truly. Thank you. Back to you, Shannon.
Thanks, Roger. Thanks for that. Did you know that Edco is a membership organization with nearly 300 members, membership making up about 35% of the annual budget? If you're not yet an Edco member, consider it today to help us underwrite important work doing behind the scenes, assisting companies of all sizes to move, start, and grow across Central Oregon. Okay, here's how we're going to ask questions tonight. On the right side of your screen is a chat bar. You'll type your questions into the chat bar, and we'll get them. I'll get them over here and can get them to our guests. If it's easier, you can email your questions to events@edcoinfo.com, and we can take care of the rest. So you can type them into the chat to the right of your screen, or you can email them directly to us, events@edcoinfo.com. On to tonight's early stage companies provided by supporting sponsor Central Oregon Association of Realtors, COAR. Selling a home can be stressful at this time, so please visit coar.com to learn about the special precautions the real estate industry is taking to keep you safe during your transaction. Thank you to Tyler Neese, who sits on the Edco Board of Directors on behalf of COAR. If you're giving it a shot yourself, Stephanie Hicks, co-founder of fsboHandshake, is here to provide an update how her growing company is helping home buyers and sellers since they first took the PubTalk stage to introduce their startup last year, which may seem, gosh, a lot longer than a year ago, huh? fsboHandshake allows home sellers and buyers to transact real estate online directly without the need for commissioned real estate agents. fsboHandshake provides the platform, tools, and guidance to complete the real estate transactions with confidence, all the way from offer to closing for a flat fee. Stephanie, can you do anything about the shrinking inventory here in Bend? I'm just asking for a friend.
Stephanie. Thank you. Thank you so much, Shannon. Sorry about that. Thank you for letting me be here and having the opportunity to share with you the progress we've made since we first launched and since Tim, my husband, first introduced fsboHandshake and what's happened since then. So for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are an affordable alternative to selling real estate without using a real estate agent. And we've been asked to kind of share with you guys today the good, the bad, and the ugly that's happened. And I think we can all agree there's been a lot of ugly 2020. So let's get started. So I want to first talk about some challenges we've had. Talking to the team, we try to discuss what was our biggest challenge. And honestly, our biggest challenge is brand awareness. I think most companies might say that. We were so excited when we launched. We're like, we are disrupting the real estate industry. We have this excellent technology. This is going to be huge. People are going to save so much money. And then it was like crickets. And we're like, oh no, oh crap. So trying to get the word out there, it's tough to challenge the status quo of things. I think the real estate industry has been the same way for so long. And just with the change in technology, the change in this abundance of knowledge out there, that real estate agents are becoming a luxury instead of a necessity. And so trying to get the word out there so people know to call us before they think about necessarily calling a real estate agent has been challenging. And then our other challenge is honestly communicating who we are and what we do. Because we're unique, because we're a new company and we're doing something new, it's very challenging to discuss in a short time frame what we do and the value we add. And so it's been really, it's been a struggle to kind of let people know that I liken it to the tax. When you're filling out your taxes before TurboTax, before H&R Block, you had kind of two main options. You could fill out your tax form yourself and just be like, I hope I got it right, or you can use a tax accountant. And then TurboTax and H&R Block came along, and suddenly there was this option that was a little more secure. You felt a little more safe about it, and it cost just a little bit of money. So it was kind of that in between. Well, that's fsboHandshake. So you have the traditional route, the real estate route. You can have that luxury. It's going to cost more, or you can do for sale by owner and kind of hope you get your contract right. So, I mean, you have those two options. And now you have fsboHandshake, and we build the offers, we build the contract, we have all the closing steps. And so trying to convey all of that in a timely manner for people has proved challenging. So we're working through that still. And this is all before coronavirus. So then coronavirus hit, and we were with everybody else in the world thinking, oh no, like what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the real estate industry? We thought, oh, it's 2008 again. Oh no. So there's definitely that concern. And then we started seeing the mortgage rates decrease. We're like, oh, this is good news. And then we started seeing, you know, the market was stable. We're like, okay, it's not so bad. And then boom, it's just booming now. I mean, inventory is low and demand is high. And so for us, you know, we were positioned, we're so thankful that we are a virtual company. We don't have a brick and mortar store. So we didn't have to shut down necessarily. And also in times of uncertainty, people are looking for an affordable option. And we are an affordable option. So we are that affordable side of things. So we were positioned well, and we're very thankful for that. We did have some concern with our home sellers. They trying to do the open houses. A lot of times for sale by owner, sellers find their buyers at open houses, and so they weren't able to do that quite the same. So that was a little bit of a struggle and a challenge. And last for us, for the coronavirus, we're a tech company, and our developers are in the Philippines. And so when the coronavirus hit, they work out of the tech hub in Cebu City, and they had to move out to the remote towns that has limited internet. So you can see that the challenge that was posed for us, and we depend on continuous maintenance. We depend on new iterations rolling out. So we're always trying to improve our website. So our productivity definitely stalled a bit, you could say. So that was a challenge for us. But overall, we feel like we're so thankful. Our growth has increased a great deal right now. So we're very thankful. People are looking for alternative ways to do things, more cost-effective ways. And we have that safe, secure, and cost-effective option for people. And just the mindset now with real estate has shifted to even real estate agents. We have had to move virtual. And so we're thankful that it's become more acceptable to have a virtual transaction, and that's what we excel in. So that's kind of our story.
Wow, there's just a lot that's so interesting about what you all are doing. So I heard you say that you had some issues getting like a brand recognition built up. So do you have any plans to update your branding or rebrand in any way?
You know, we're still working through. That's a good question. We're not at this moment. I think this whole movement with the coronavirus has shifted the mindset. I think that's been our biggest barrier. Isn't necessarily like our branding. It's the mindset that you can do it online without a real estate agent. So it's changing the mindset, and this idea with the coronavirus and everything's moved online, that it's become more acceptable. And I think that's what we're excited. We've seen the kind of the shift.
That's great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, so now are you having trouble holding on to your friends who are in real estate? I mean, this is an incredible development, but
yeah, so it's very difficult. Of course, I have a lot of friends that are in real estate, and I think, you know, after last year or the 2019 PubTalk, there was some animosity towards us, like, hey, you're trying to get rid of real estate agents. Is not necessarily true. There's room for real estate agents in there's complex real estate transactions that require real estate agents. They have their place. And again, with anything else, they're a luxury. You're getting that full service, but you're paying for it. And we need to be able to provide an option for all the people who are trying to save some money. You don't have to spend that amount of money. That they were, you know, very angry that we were saying they cost so much money, and they got all the money and they put it in their pockets and ran off, you know, with the huge check. And our concern was that to the seller, it doesn't matter where that check goes. It's the fact that they're feeling like they're forced to have to pay. And many times in Bend, the average home sale, I mean, they're paying a $25,000 check to the real estate agents where they don't need to anymore.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so, what's next for you all?
Well, we're just plugging away. We're pretty excited. We're making changes to our website. So what our plan is to, I mean, we are trying to simplify some more to make it for right now. We're trying to make it as simple as possible. I mean, it's really designed for people with all levels of real estate experience. You could know everything and you can know nothing and you would still succeed. But we want to make it even simpler. I mean, one-touch type transactions. And so we're moving into that direction just to make it as simple as possible and just easy for everybody to accomplish.
Well, it's just so exciting, and it's great to hear your update. And I appreciate how just candid you were with everything. So, Stephanie, I wish you both the best of luck. I hope you'll stay in touch with us, and you'll give us another update next year. And good luck. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
What an interesting time to be house hunting, huh? So sponsoring our next early stage pitch company is Sga Cpas. In addition to 30 years of income tax preparation and consulting here in Bend, Sga Cpas offers cloud-based accounting services to small and medium-sized businesses with their virtual financial officer program, allowing you the time and freedom to do what you do best, run your business. Thank you to Amber Yates and Sga, also a Platinum Edco board member. And now on to the good stuff, like the real good stuff. Founded in Glide, Oregon in 2007, Holm Made Toffee is a family-owned artisan confectioner now headquartered in Bend. Holm Made Toffee crafts their candy in traditional handmade batches using Oregon-grown hazelnuts and ingredients sourced from the Pacific Northwest in every batch. Let's hear how Chief Toffee Officer and co-owner of Holm Made Toffee, Randy Holm, is navigating all that is 2020 and what is to come. Hi, Randy. How are you?
Hi, good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
So I'm Randy Holm, co-owner and Chief Toffee Officer of Holm Made Toffee Company. And if you hadn't already guessed, yes, I did make up that title myself. We are a candy company, and so you got to have fun with it. Let's see. And as she mentioned, we're a small family-owned confectioner based here in Bend. We currently employ a staff of 5, and during our busy holiday season, which is now, we ramp up to between 7 and 10 employees. We have a commercial kitchen here on First Street. That's where I'm at now. And during our busiest months, which are September through December, we produce, package, and ship over 9,000 pounds of toffee. So literally speaking, tons of toffee. Our tagline, as you can see here, is happiness, plain and simple. And it doesn't just refer to our simple ingredients. It's the core of our business. It's what got us started and what keeps us going, especially in 2020. But more on 2020 later. Plenty to talk about there. And to be completely honest, what started our business was actually a lot of sadness. Donna Holm, my business partner and mother-in-law, yes, you did hear me right. I am business partners with my mother-in-law. She's been making toffee for over 30 years. It started as a hobby and a way to spread happiness to friends and family. But in 2007, her life came crashing down. The day after she retired from teaching, she lost her husband, Bill. Suddenly, she was without her daily job and her husband, and she needed something to keep her hands and her mind busy, something to bring her happiness. And at that moment, Holm Made Toffee as a company was born. Now, where do I come in? Good question. I married her son, Billy, and I relocated to Bend. I worked for a while in the corporate grind, but I was ultimately unhappy and bored. Bored. Famous last words, right? Sometimes I still yearn for the days of clocking in and out from 9 to 5. In 2013, I was laid off from that company when it closed its doors. At the time, it seemed devastating, but it was just the push I needed. And you guessed it, I needed something to bring me some happiness. Enter Holm Made Toffee Company. Donna had the recipe and the bones to a good business. I had the sales and marketing experience and big goals. We started expanding into a lot of wholesale, and growth came year after year, and it seemed to come pretty easy. Our target market was specialty grocery, airports, gift shops, mom and pop boutiques, and artisan markets. By 2019, so this time last year, we had 10 employees, almost 2,500 square feet of leased production space, and we'd grown to over 500 retailers nationwide in 48 states. Not bad for a family-owned business still making our products all by hand. And exciting, right? Well, as an owner, but also operator, I was working 12 to 15-hour days, 80-hour weeks, weekdays, weekends, not sleeping, burnt out, and to add insult to injury, barely profitable. I wore a hat nearly every single day that said, you guessed it, happiness, plain and simple, but I felt like a fraud. Here I am slinging happiness, but I wasn't happy myself. Enter 2020. I wish I had some dramatic music. I don't have to go into too much detail. You know the drill. Shutdown, layoffs, plummeting sales, and above all else, fear. And after struggling through much of 2018 and 2019, the good years, 2020 seemed like it was going to easily be the nail in our coffin. And our March through June numbers seemed to prove that. Wholesale, which is our bread and butter, down 48%. Markets, down 100%. They were all canceled. Wedding and event favors, down 72%. Brutal, right? And part of the reason that my props are so low budget. But in all seriousness, it was enough to make me just throw my hands up and walk away. But direct to consumer was booming, and our website was up over 700%. And yes, I did have to run those numbers a few times on QuickBooks to make sure what I was seeing was accurate. QuickBooks isn't always my forte. But yes, up 700%. People were stuck at home. They were bored. They were missing friends. They were missing family. And they wanted to share happiness through our product. That was our aha moment and also our push to pivot. Pivot, 2020's favorite word. Are you tired of it yet? So I dusted off my goals that my advisor and I had created in January 2020, pre-COVID and what now seems like a lifetime ago. We talked about things like diversifying revenue streams, hiring, delegating, training staff to give me some help in the kitchen, finding a whole new kitchen that had better lease terms, digging into COGS, digging into productivity, all what seems like no-brainers when you're talking about business. But pre-COVID, we were running so fast and running so hard that I didn't have the time. But what I am now calling the COVID arm twist occurred. When you're faced with your business maybe going down in flames or making changes happen pretty quick. So we got to work. My staff and I spent the summer, which is our slow season, planning, and here's that word again, pivoting. Yes, our web was up exponentially, but our website was old. It was over 7 years old. It was outdated. It was frustrating. It was frustrating customers. It was frustrating us. We spent all day long fielding emails and phone calls about lost carts and all sorts of crazy things. So we invested time, we invested money, we switched our web platform completely. We updated photos, copy, branding. We added more gift sets, which was huge. And then probably the biggest improvement that we made is after seeing that people were using online to send happiness to friends and family quarantined, we had a dedicated space created for customers to easily add a gift message, a custom gift message, and then we handwrite those gift notes. We also had fun being creative in the kitchen again, and in the past 7 months, we've created more flavors than we have in the past 7 years. We increased our SKUs from about a dozen to over 30. We put together curated gift sets, combining our toffee with other local makers' items. We created fun collaboration flavors. So check out Oregon Spirit Distillers. They have a new bourbon toffee in their tasting room. We also started preaching shop small early And in the summer, we ran a Christmas in July blitz so that we could pre-sell gift cards, get some much needed cash flow so that we could then afford to ramp up our ingredients and our packaging for the holidays. We also used that promo during Christmas in July to introduce and market over a dozen other local makers to our followers. In turn, it's been keeping our customers engaged and it's keeping them buying. We then turned our attention back to wholesale, because if you remember from my prop here, down 48%, and that was our bread and butter. So that was pretty brutal. It started to pick back up, but we wanted to see who was buying. It wasn't to our normal levels and it wasn't our normal buyers. So we dug in. We noticed that it was mostly online pop-up shops, and we noticed it was a lot of gift boxing companies. So back to that gifting theme and people wanting to spread happiness and send cheer. So we set out, my staff and I, and we scoured the web, we scoured social media. Instagram was huge, and started sending samples, wholesale information, calling. So good old fashioned cold calling, it works. That being said, we are very lucky. I have a little bit of a survivor's guilt because a lot of my friends have service-based companies. But we make and sell a physical product. Our market is still out there. Our customers are still buying. It's just shifted. They aren't browsing in boutiques. They're browsing online. They aren't impulse buying at the grocery store cash register. They're doing curbside pickup. So while we had to work a lot harder to find them, we are finding them and they are still there, just in different places. When I look at our current numbers today, it does show that COVID arm twist, while painful, it's been a painful year, it is working. So wholesale, we've clawed back and we're at this point only down about 1% from where we were last year. Super proud of that. So we'll call that even. Markets, still canceled, still not safe, still down 100%. Weddings and event favors, still non-existent, but we focused on corporate gifting instead, and we've moved that needle, and we're only about 50% down now and still working hard on that since this is corporate gifting season. So I'll take it. Website, we've leveled out from that huge initial spike, but we're still around a 350% increase over this time last year. So this sales channel previously years had dwindled down to about 5% of our total business throughout the year, and we're above 20 now. So we want to keep that going. We're not out of the woods yet. We're definitely seeing the light, but not out of the woods. And with the state mandates going into effect yesterday, here comes my ask. I'm not here looking for investors yet. I'm not here asking for shiny new equipment. Give me a few more years. I might be back. I am here humbly and passionately asking, I don't want to beg, but asking for everyone to shop small and shop local this year, whether that's with me or if it's with another small business. We're your community. We're your friends. We're your neighbors. We're your family. I do think that the shop small term has gotten a little bit buzzy, a little bit commercialized, and people are probably getting a little bit fatigued by it. So here's my official ask. Please, please, please shop your community in 2020 and beyond. So if you will, hashtag shop community. Thank you.
Wow, I just appreciate this ask so much. Thank you, Randy. You're incredible. And your story, your update, that is incredible. Like emotional highs and lows, huh? Wow. Well, I think it's such an incredible, I love your product. Like every time Savory Spice Shop has the Taste It Day, I make sure to get my butt down there. And I have to say, I've been watching you guys over the course of this past couple years. And you really are sort of all over town, although if we aren't all over town, then that is really going to disrupt things. So I'm just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how your product is different, like what makes it different from competitor, like who are some of your competitors and how is your product different from them?
Well, first of all, we have beautiful new packaging.
It is beautiful.
We worked years on this, literally years. So we do have a much giftier, shelf-ready package, which we've seen. That was that huge jump the past few years in wholesale, and why I said it almost seemed too easy. Our packaging catches store managers' eyes. It captures, people at markets who want to give a gift. So that is a huge difference. Also with our flavors. So anybody can pretty much make toffee in their kitchen if they try it. It's really easy to Google, recipes and things, but we try to get really, really creative and put a modern twist and a local twist on our toffee. So we use lavender from Tumala Lavender, Gordon and Judy that farm it. We know them. They were our neighbors for years at the farmers markets. And I mentioned, head on over to the Oregon Spirit Distillers, to their tasting room, and try the whiskey toffee. We're using, our recipe, their wonderful bourbon. So that's what makes us different. Like I said, we have, we went from 12 SKUs to about 30 recently. We're just having a lot of fun in the toffee kitchen.
Yeah, I think it's so much fun, and I love the partnerships that you have going, especially with Oregon Spirit Distillers. It's really sweet. And so, what's your favorite flavor?
I am around toffee so much. I mean, I hate to say it because it is delicious. Right now, I always like our new ones just because they're fun and they're exciting. So our head chef, he came up with a Mexican hot cocoa that we have right now online. If you love cinnamon, which I do, it's delicious. But my new favorite surprised me, and it's hard to surprise me anymore. I had wanted to do a birthday cake flavor forever. Just a great gift, and it's delicious. And
That's awesome.
I've been eating that one recently. So look for that one on our website. It's brand new. It'll be in stores probably after Christmas. We're focusing on our Christmas flavors right now, but it is on our website for birthday cake.
I love that. I love that idea. That's really great. And I feel like birthday cake is like a really fun trend flavor right now. So good for you guys. Well, I have a special message / question from Roger Lee, our CEO. He says, thanks for a great update, Randy. You noted that growth in 2019 had you feeling burnt out. Has the huge disruption of 2020 reinvigorated your passion for the business and spreading happiness?
It has, surprisingly. After just being, like I said, quote unquote, the good years of 2018 and 2019, just being so burnt out, going back to basics has been refreshing. And that sounds crazy because 2020 has been so stressful, and I've worked probably harder than I ever have, even in those stressful years, but I've just been working differently. A really great staff. My shout out, if any of them are watching, I don't know, it's after hours, they're clocked out. So supportive of me, and that is huge. So building just a staff that works together, supports you, just makes you want to be there for them. I mean, I didn't want to walk away from something that my mother-in-law and I have been working on for so many years and all of our hard work, but also just, it kept me up at night thinking about my staff and letting them down. So it has reinvigorated me. And all of these online orders that I was talking about that came in March when people were flooding our website that was broken down and not working, the notes, or the emails that they sent me saying, could you please include this, in my package, the notes that I was writing to nurses, to doctors, to family members that people miss, to grandmas. I mean, we handwrite those, myself and my staff handwrite those. And put them in the box personally and, wrap it all up and cute stickers. And we spend a lot of time making it special and just reading those notes of what everybody was going through in 2020 and knowing that somehow like our little product here in Bend, Oregon was going out all over the nation, spreading cheer. Might sound corny, but it did invigorate me.
Oh, that's incredible. I can't imagine what it would be like to see all of those notes. So we have another question from Debbie in Madras. She says, do you have a storefront we can purchase product at, or are your products available at local retailers and online only? So do you have anyone in Madras that's selling the product?
Madras, we were working on a few places right before. I dropped off a bunch of samples and things in Madras. So we'll work on that again. The White Buffalo Boutique did have us for a little bit, but maybe I'll give her a call and get her to.
Well, you can give her a call, but I will also say, from what I understand in terms of grocery, the best way to get a new product at the market or store that you shop at is to go and request it from the manager. So Debbie, you got to put a little request in there for your homemade toffee. You got to get.
We don't have our own storefront. We did move kitchens, and I have a beautiful kitchen that I love on First Street. We do allow pickup, so we do have curbside pickup. You can order online, and you can just pick it up here from us at our kitchen. I've heard it smells really good here when everybody comes in the door.
Yes.
We are at so many local retailers. You can find them on our website. We have a retailers tab. We are at so many places in Central Oregon, and if you buy at a store, it not only helps them out, but it helps us out as well. So you're helping two local businesses.
That's such a good point. Yeah, and you really are. I mean, I see you at Savory Spice Shop, you're at the Workhouse, you're at Central Oregon Local Board, you're at Newport Market. I mean, I feel like it's pretty easy to get a hold of it. But I understand we are also offering a special discount tonight. This is 20% off. And Elise is going to put that code in the chat. It's EDCO20. So 20% off all your purchases. And then you can ship those purchases directly to the people that you want to give it to, or you can ship it to your house. And then you also have, let's see here, it says, can customers order products as a gift for somebody directly off the website? And that's a yes. That's like one of your biggest.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yes. We love doing that. That was part of that upgrade that we did with our website. So it should be easy to use now. We're getting good feedback. And there is a place for a note. And we, like I mentioned, we will handwrite that and we will wrap it up as a gift and send it out.
Okay, so get over to, and tell us the website just one more time.
HolmMadeToffee.com, and it is a play on words. So our last name is Holm, Holm. So Holm Made Toffee.
HolmMadeToffee.com, HOLM, and you can use the code EDCO20 for a 20% discount. I think you said it so well. Working differently really was like the theme of 2020, and it sounds like you learned a lot. I know I certainly have. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm rooting for you. I love your product. I really am like heartbroken that we're not in person and having samples, but I do appreciate the 20% discount. I love to send your products home for the holidays. So thanks, Randy. Good luck to you. I am just wishing you the best holiday season.
Thank you.
All right, you all make sure that you use that EDCO20 code for homemade toffee purchases. And now we have even more good stuff to bring to you. Barrett Business Services, Inc. is sponsoring our next segment. And they say, thank you, Edco, for continuing to put on creative versions of Pub Talk and BBC. It provides us a glimmer of normality and tradition that was sorely needed in 2020. I could not agree more. They wish all of you best wishes for a different but hopefully enjoyable holiday season, and they say we will see you in 2021. A well wish from BBSI Area Director and Edco Board Member Eric Strobel. If secret family recipe toffee wasn't enough to rub it in that we're stuck at home tonight instead of sampling in person, now it's time to talk chocolate, and not just any chocolate. This is the really good single origin cocoa chocolate being curated by Seahorse Chocolate Studio here in Bend. They believe the yummiest chocolate is a direct result of people who care deeply about the work that they do every day. They find chocolate by seeking partners who focus on transparency and quality in their work, offering direct trade, certified single origin cocoa that reflects the craft of the farmers and producers. My mouth is watering. This is one of my favorite local products. Co-founder Amanda Gartrell, tell me more.
Okay, first of all, I have to say, Randy, that was an inspiring presentation. Thank you so much. We love your product. So my husband, RC, and I met in the mountain town of Telluride, Colorado, where he was on the cusp of opening a new coffee roastery, and I was working in fine dining as a sommelier and a wine importer. We quickly connected over coffee and wine, and taking his experience as the co-founder of Stumptown in Portland and my love of wine, we started and ran multiple coffee companies together across the country, sharing our love of tasting new things. But in 2017, we were at a crossroads, and after selling our last company on the East Coast, we were exploring new options. So returning home for him to the Pacific Northwest, we felt that the coffee market was fairly saturated. So what else could we roast? We wanted to take our skill and apply it to a new tasting experience. Our youngest son was our inspiration. He was a dark chocolate loving baby. And when we saw a vacancy in the region, we decided to build a craft chocolate roastery right here in Bend. And so we focus on sourcing and roasting single origin cocoa and forming one-of-a-kind chocolate bars that will change your mind about what good chocolate should be. But there's a problem. Chocolate for most people is just that, chocolate. And so like many similar food industries before, wine, coffee, or beer, large corporations have dominated the market and homogenized the product using massive amounts of low quality commodity cocoa beans, adding sweeteners, stabilizers, and so on to cover up the natural and unique flavors hidden in the cocoa bean itself. In fact, the most popular chocolate bar on the market only contains about 10% cocoa. Additionally, many people do not realize that the significant impact purchasing a chocolate bar can have on an individual. The traditional supply chain for chocolate is broken. 70% of the chocolate produced in the world comes from Western Africa, and this is built on exploitation of human labor. However, like in many other industries before, there's a huge gap for brands in the chocolate industry to offer transparency along the supply chain and help connect social and economic values of sustainability for each person participating in this work. From Maxwell House Coffee to Stumptown Coffee Roasters, from Hershey's Chocolate to Seahorse Chocolate, this new horizon paves the way for an evolution that we once helped transform within the coffee industry and now chocolate. So what if we told you that chocolate isn't just chocolate, but a vehicle for flavor discovery like you've never experienced before? That's where Seahorse Chocolate comes in. We're building on everything we've learned from sourcing and roasting and tasting coffee and applying it to cocoa. So by responsibly sourcing the highest quality direct trade certified cocoa along our unique with our unique roasting process, we're able to bring out origin-specific flavor notes in our products that create a whole new way to experience chocolate. And it's very similar to the way many of us taste a flight of wine or single origin coffees. Our chocolate will take you on a tasting journey like you've never encountered before. So it's the same ingredients, just from different places and a totally different experience in your mouth. And if we think back just 20 years ago, it was unthinkable for the average consumer outside of metro markets to indulge daily in a $5 coffee drink. And we're on the brink of this shift within the world of chocolate. Are consumers ready to pay $10 for a Seahorse chocolate bar? The answer is a resounding yes. Consumer education is paving the way for high expectations when it comes to sourcing and tasting. And as a result of globalization, we can now connect in a more meaningful way with a country, a farm, a farmer, the soil, the person that harvested your grapes, fermented your cocoa beans, and sun-dried your coffee. So what are the converging market factors that make specialty chocolate the perfect product for right now? And how is Seahorse meeting that demand? Well, market research proves that consumers are willing to pay more for an elevated product that exceeds the expectations of what chocolate can and should be. The specialty chocolate market size, where Seahorse sits at over $11 billion worldwide and $1 billion within the United States, with growth climbing 19% each year. And this is our target market. The specialty food and beverage market continued to outpace sales of food, growing 3 times faster than the entire food and beverage market from 2017 to 2019. And during 2019, more categories than ever before achieved at least $2 billion in annual sales. As a result of this shift, our chocolate flies off the shelves at Erewhon Markets in Los Angeles, Cova Coffee in Portland, The Meadow in New York City, Corvus Coffee Roasters in Denver, and locally here at Jackson's Corner and Newport Market, just to name a few. And we've seen a sizable increase in sales because chocolate has remained a comfort food throughout the pandemic. So certainly currently our competitors are made up of chocolate makers who have varying albeit limited knowledge and skills in regards to sourcing, roasting, and product quality. So what sets Seahorse apart is being the first crossover from the world of specialty coffee, which gives us a competitive advantage. We're using our coffee and wine industry knowledge as a springboard for sourcing, roasting, tasting, and educating, and this has paved the way for a never been done before concept. These applications to chocolate have paid off. As a Good Food Award finalist, our customers are raving about us. And in the roastery, we actually laugh at the frequentness of a customer trying our chocolate and responding, "Best chocolate I've ever tasted." Although we never tire of hearing these sentiments. So our business model is based on a two-tiered approach. First is direct to consumer through our e-commerce platform. And second is a business to business through carefully chosen wholesale partners, including grocery, specialty markets, and high-end cafes. Our year-to-date revenue is up 36% over last year, and customer acquisitions have quadrupled over the past few months with the addition of a part-time salesperson. We recently started offering a half-ounce grab-and-go chocolate square, baking chunks, and mocha chocolate. Our gross profits are 75% direct-to-consumer and 63% on wholesale. And this is all made possible by our Seahorse family, which is currently composed of Jay Junkin, Parker Vaughn, and Aaron Christensen, who you'll see at Jackson's Corner, and myself. I focus on retail channel development, customer experience, and relations. I mentioned our first employee, that's Ian Holiday. He does sales. And our Seaguard Trail is our co-founder. He is a Specialty Coffee Association lead instructor, is well known and respected within the coffee industry, and is currently helping to develop certifications that are equivalent to a sommelier within the chocolate world. So that's pretty exciting. So as we can see, chocolate is having a moment. Like craft beer and specialty coffee, the number of small batch chocolate makers is on the rise. 15 years ago, there were only about 5 in the country, and now there are more than 250. In other words, craft chocolate is poised to be the next big trend. And Seahorse Chocolate is at a pivotal moment in time. We have outgrown the local and regional markets and are expanding nationally. Our specific ask is to meet branding and marketing experts with expertise scaling brands from regional to national to global. We started in our kitchen, wrapping bars at our dining room table, and we quickly moved into a retail space on Bond Street. We're now shipping chocolate across the country and are navigating uncharted waters, which is incredibly exciting. So as a co-founder of Seahorse, I invite you to taste and see for yourself. We look forward to connecting with you via our website, seahorsechocolate.com, or locally at Newport Avenue Market or Jackson's Corner, and happy chocolate tasting.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. Your chocolate is incredible. It is truly the best chocolate I've had in years. I know years ago, our friends Gem Raw Chocolate, they used to make a bar and they only made it for a short period of time and it was so delicious. And then we went through this phase where there was nobody local making chocolate. And then all of a sudden you all popped up and it is like, it isn't even a contest between Seahorse and like any other chocolate that you might be eating. And in fact, I've sent it to friends of mine and family all over the country and they say exactly the same thing. This is really special. This is the best chocolate I've ever had. So thank you. Thank you for your pitch. I can't say enough good things about you all. So any big plans for additional products that you're adding? I know you've just added a new flavor. This is an almond coconut milk bar. It's delicious. The small bars are great. I love that you've added the baking squares as well. This is so exciting. And what's kind of next on the like product development side?
I think Ian's jumping in for a Q&A here, and
oh, there you are, Ian. Hi.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much for having us be able to present today. It's super fun to be able to share what we're working on here in Bend. And just so everybody knows what the product looks like, since you can't taste it today, this is one of the packages. I broke into it while I was listening. You can see the little seahorse, our logo, And then here's the packaging. This is a chocolate from Peru. And one of the cool things about this packaging is the tasting notes we put right here on the chocolate bar itself, the percentage of cocoa. And then the only other ingredient is organic cane sugar. And so that's one of the really fun things about what we've done with the packaging. RC was really into music growing up, played in a bunch of bands all over the country. And so one of the other kind of like fun inside things when you look at our packaging, and if you're into music, a lot of the colors are also famous guitar colors from Gretsch and Fender and Gibson as well.
Oh, I love that. That's so fun.
Yeah.
So I know like another big thing that I'm seeing in like the smaller, more boutique chocolate companies is this trend towards not using traditional sugar, using coconut sugar, allulose, stevia. There's maple crystals. There's a whole range of different options. Do you all have any plans to try an alternative sweetener for your bars?
We were actually just this last week going into the winter season talking about maple syrup on pancakes and other delicious things, and so we're looking into maple. Amanda's from the Northeast or has family out there, and so that would be something that would be really, really cool. I think we obviously are using the coconut milk in our dark milk chocolate bar, and so finding a coconut sugar I think could also be really awesome. I think for us, we are so tuned into we really like the purity and kind of the traditionality around the ingredients that we're using, so just cocoa, just sugar, but definitely open to exploring as we have more time to kind of look into those avenues.
Very cool. So I have a question from folks watching at home. Do you have a special story about one of the small family farms that you've been sourcing cocoa beans from that you'd want to share?
Awesome. Yeah, so we work with an amazing partner and importer called Meridian Cacao, who's actually often, except for over the last few months, going and working directly with the farmers. And so our hope is in this spring that we're going to, depending on travel ability, be able to go with them and to work with the farmers. I think one of the best stories that I heard most, or that I was most recently inspired by, is this chocolate from Peru. They are up in the Ucayali River, and so they brought together a bunch of family farms. These are all people who mostly live scattered throughout, but they live really close to this river. And so the river is the means of transporting the cocoa beans to and from the big city and for export. But a lot of those families were trapped in cocaine and like drug cartel industries. And so with a partnership with USAID, they worked with the Ucayali River Co-op to form a cocoa bean fermentery where families could take the cocoa beans that were growing on their properties, bring them there, and make money outside of the cocaine industry and be able to provide them more opportunities. And so working with, there's a bunch of stories like that with a few of the other cocoa farmers, but I think just the fact that we have more of the information and we're starting to build those relationships with the farmers and with the co-ops, and being able to share that with the end consumer, the people who are actually eating the chocolate, and being able to know that you're not just enjoying some of the best chocolate you may have ever had in your life, but you're also doing good and supporting other people to be able to live a healthier, happier, fuller life as well.
Ian, you just blew my mind. You mean to tell me that I can eat a chocolate bar and disrupt the cocaine industry at the same time? I am really feeling that. Okay, so I have a question from at home. They want to know, how does your chocolate differ from classic gourmet Swiss, German, or Austrian brands? Which I feel like, gosh, that's a big question. But again, we aren't sampling in person.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I would invite you to go to our website and order some. Use the PubTalk20 discount code to get that 20% off. One of the really cool things, just I will talk about our differentiation, but on our website, we have a couple of really fun things when it comes to tasting chocolate. So I come from the coffee industry, Amanda comes from wine, RC comes from coffee as well. But we're really into the tasting the differences from the Peru that has candied orange peel and fudge, or the Honduras, which I think Amanda touched on, but both our Trinidad chocolate, and this is our ½ ounce package size, which is a little bit smaller and more manageable to eat on the go. Our Honduras and our Trinidad were submitted to the Good Food Awards, which is a huge craft specialty industry. And both of those have been nominated. We don't know who the winners are yet, but in the top 20 for best chocolate. And so I think just being a part of that process, and where there's over 2,000 chocolate makers who are submitting to this organization, who have hundreds of tasters tasting thousands of different chocolate bars side by side, and we're in the top 20, goes a long way to show that our chocolate is differentiated. I think the roasting style is something that we really are using to help draw out a lot of the flavor in the cocoa beans itself. So many of the major chocolate producers are just taking cocoa beans, throwing them in an oven, letting them get to a certain temperature and pulling them out without really thinking about what's actually happening chemically and flavor-wise during that process. And so we're really tuned in. We're super into the flavor and nuances that 20 seconds, 5 degrees is going to make in the end result of the chocolate you're going to eat.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree. I love your product. I know I'm like acting almost weird about it, but I love your product. This summer when we were able to eat outdoors, a friend of mine and I grabbed one of the little squares, and it was like the perfect little treat right after dinner at Jackson's Corner. And I also want to point out, you all, for to grab and go, the chocolate croissants at Jackson's Corner are now being made with Seahorse Chocolate. This is a really special moment for chocolate croissants. I need to put that out there. Get yourself one of those chocolate croissants. Okay, so I know we have one other question. People want to know, what's the significance of the name Seahorse?
That's awesome. I'm actually going to ask Amanda to jump back in, because it ties back into when they founded the company.
Cool.
Sure, absolutely. So we always joke, if there's anything to disagree on, RC, my husband, and I will disagree. I say black, he says white. So we were trying to come up with a name for the company and going around in circles, having people over for wine. How about this? How about that? The same thing happens when we name a new puppy. And so my husband said to me, the next thing that comes out of your mouth, I don't care what it is, that is the name of our company. And I said, and both of my children homeschooled. I said, Rowan, our younger son, the chocolate lover, we were doing a project today about seahorses. I'm telling him all about them. They're so interesting. What about Seahorse Chocolate? And he said, that's it.
That's a great story. Also, how many puppies do you have?
Oh, well, we do like to rescue dogs. We have 2 at the moment.
Amazing. You're like, every time we name a puppy, and I was like, tell me more. Oh, that's so great. Okay, so we have anything else that Ian or Amanda that you want to add? I love everything you've shared tonight.
Well, we're grateful for the opportunity to be here among people who love to taste and support the community in the region. And so gratitude for including us. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so 20% off, and that's at, tell me the website, seahorsechocolate.com. Okay, seahorsechocolate.com, 20% off. That's a huge opportunity, and I believe the code is EDCO20. It is in the chat. At least we'll put that in the chat for you all. Take advantage. Send this to all of your friends and family for Christmas, along with Holm Made Toffee, and you will be the family member of the year, I guarantee it. Well, thanks Amanda and Ian so much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. Oh, PubTalk20 for the Seahorse. That's the code, PubTalk20. All right, so thanks again. I hope you all will make a really strong point to shop small, to shop local. It's so important now more than ever before, but also because we have these really amazing products to share, not just because it's important for our community's health, but we actually have stuff to show off. So get in there and make those purchases and help these companies grow. They deserve it. So on to our keynote to learn more about sales. This is sponsored by Bend Broadband, who is so pleased to be back as a sponsor for PubTalk. 2020 has been a challenging year for everyone, and they hope to continue their support to support our business community and work together to rebuild and come back even stronger. So Bend Broadband is wishing all of you a safe and happy upcoming holiday season from the entire team. Our keynote tonight, Todd Laurence, is Managing Director at Thimble Advisors. With sales being the key to any successful company, this discussion will apply to companies of any size. Todd is a sales leader in the technology industry, delivering workshops at various venture accelerators and colleges, including Princeton University. He's sold complex enterprise solutions and built sales teams globally for 2 decades, with expertise spanning a plethora of industries, including open source software, large-scale analytics, robotics and AI, supply chain manufacturing, and even food and ag tech. Here to shed some light on what every founder needs to know about sales and marketing is Todd Laurence. Todd, how did you get so lucky to share tonight's Pub Talk virtual stage with all these amazing female entrepreneurs tonight?
Well, Shannon, thank you for the introduction. I'm actually wondering that myself. I loved all the presentations. And in fact, I'm going to weave some of these stories into my own discussion around sales.
Take it away.
Thank you. All right. So it's nice to meet everybody, and I hope that we're all doing well in these crazy times. It would be fun if we were in person, but we're going to have to make this online process do. I want to say a special thank you to Edco for not only the great work that they're doing to build an incredible economic engine here in Central Oregon, but also congratulations, because I think the first all virtual Pub Talk is going pretty well so far. And I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts on sales. So hopefully, if this technology works, I'm going to share a couple of slides with you. And you tell me if you can see the slides right now. Does everyone see them? Yeah, it looks like they do. Perfect. So the conversation we're going to have tonight is about go-to-market 101, what every founder needs to know about sales. Let's start with a baseline, because I had the privilege during the networking event of speaking with a person here in our local community who was kind enough to admit that she's actually intimidated by sales, even though the role that she's now doing has a lot of components of sales to it. So why is this? Because this was my experience as well. I was a supply chain and manufacturing guy for 10 years before I stumbled into my first sales job. And like many people, I had many misperceptions about sales and about the people that gravitate towards that as a profession. Where do those come from? Well, let's just take a look. If you look at all of the different perspectives or perceptions that we have about people in sales, there's the classic Willie Loman, the central character in Death of a Salesman, who was actually a fairly tragic figure who, lived a life that was much a fantasy and ended up even taking his own life because he couldn't live up to his expectations in his sales profession. But then there's Tom Cruise, Jerry Maguire, whose famous line was, "Show me the money," right? That's a very aggressive portrayal of sales and something that most people find intimidating, even though it's not at all accurate. Does anyone remember John Candy's role in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? What did he sell? Shower curtain rings, right? Happy-go-lucky but pretty hapless fellow. And then there's the Wolf of Wall Street, probably one of the more intimidating sales characters in all of the movie, when you can see him in his boiler room in his early sales career, learning how to essentially persuade retirees to spend their life savings on risky penny stocks. Super intimidating. But the most of all, the classic sales movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, if you remember the Alec Baldwin character who gives this incredibly harsh and intimidating speech to try and motivate a bunch of salespeople in the real estate development world. If this was truly what sales is like, most of us who do sales for a living, I think, would never join this profession. Got one or two more. We all love Dwight Schrute. And I even had to, from The Office, and I even had to find something more recent just to make sure that it's not a whole bunch of classic white male stereotypes. Who's seen the Selling Sunset series on Netflix? It's also a portrayal of sales as a profession that really doesn't look like it is for many of us, and it's intimidating for a lot of us. So if there's anything that I hope to accomplish tonight, it's to open people's eyes to not just sales as a profession, but to have people start to understand that sales is actually very much of a process. It's not built on this personal persuasion that the media tends to portray. And ultimately, I hope everyone here gains an appreciation for the fact that for all of you as founders or as entrepreneurs, your business is sales as well. And selling skills will be among the most important things you can acquire. And we've already had great examples. Randy Holm from Holm Made Toffee, I loved your stories about having to double down on finding new ways to grow revenues for homemade toffees. That's absolutely what sales is about when you're an entrepreneur or a founder. It's not the images we see in the media and on TV. So let me give you context for where I've developed my own startup experience, most of it in sales, but not all. First startup company I worked for, Echelon, was, as I like to call them, the old gangster of smart devices and internet technology. They sold semiconductors. I was in manufacturing, so I actually didn't even have an appreciation for sales back then. But the next startup I worked for, very early stage company, sold supply chain optimization software. And that was my first sales job at a startup. And I had to deal with a lot of the challenges that we heard from Stephanie Hicks starting out for sale by owner. And the fact that in the early stages, when you're a startup, sales is really challenging. But this was my first taste of it. Shannon mentioned that I spent some time in ag tech. HarvestMark was the company. We were in food traceability. Our product was a little barcode that gets stuck on a watermelon or a clamshell of grapes or a bag of onions, and it tells you, the end consumer, where your product, where the vegetable in your hand came from, what day it was harvested, things like that. Most fun sales job I have, because I spent my time in farms all over North America and really all over Latin America. Then I worked for a software company again called Cloudera. We were in the big data space. And then for the past year, I spent my year traveling all around the world as a global VP of sales, selling an autonomous floor cleaning robot. Finally, today as a consultant, I have several clients in the software space, one in the natural analytics space, the other in the cloud DevOps space. And once again, I'm the first business hire and I'm starting that sales process from scratch. I'd tell you what each one of those do, but we're still in stealth mode, so I can't. So for all of you that are founders, startup owners, things like that, you guys know that in the beginning, a startup goes to market by you, the founders, being the ones that have to not just focus on the product, but really learn how to drive revenue, how to go get those first sales. And so that's what we'll talk about tonight. And hopefully the lessons that I share will be as applicable to companies like Seahorse and Holm Made Toffees in the consumer goods space as they are to companies that are selling to businesses in what we call the enterprise space. That first phase is probably the hardest because the founders of the companies have to figure out the sales process while you're often still working on the product and on the marketing and all the other aspects. But with good fortune and a lot of luck, you'll get to the point where sales start to take off, where you establish traction, and you'll be able to hire your first dedicated sales resource. So that's what I call phase two. And in that phase, as a founder, your efforts will shift to making sure that someone other than you can go out and sell your product effectively, right? As the founder, you of course know the origin story, you've lived it, and you can tell the most compelling stories often, but you can't scale yourself. So you need to bring on a sales resource, which is what this second phase is like. So you'll manage a person who is selling, and you'll be the one that has to focus on creating a sales management process so that you can hire your next sales resource after that. Then finally, phase three, you'll bring on a sales leader, someone to manage your sales team. And as a founder, your role shifts to managing the management function of sales. And so each of these phases requires a whole different set of skills, a different focus of you as a founder. We're going to talk tonight we're going to spend our time talking about that first phase where you, the founders, are selling. So what does that mean? Well, even though you may never have sold before, you're going to be the one that goes out and finds your first customers. You're going to find your first distribution partners as well. And you're going to have to establish those initial relationships to make that sales channel effective for your business. You're going to have to be creating all your own sales artifacts, and we'll come back to what that means in a second. You're going to have to come to understand not just your customer, but their buying cycle, how it is that they go about evaluating whether or not they're going to ultimately purchase or distribute your product. So while you're focusing on your side of this equation, trying to build sales, you got to understand and focus on your customer's side and understand how they buy and what's their journey towards not just buying the first product, the land, if you will, but expanding. And then once you've figured that out, once you understand their buying process, you're going to have to design your own sales process that mirrors how the customers go about making their decisions. This is going to be different for every single industry and whether you're selling to retail or wholesale or to another business. But it's something that I find too many founders and early stage startup companies don't think about soon enough. They're so focused on product and on establishing product market fit that they don't actually think about the sales process and design something from the beginning that is repeatable so that, again, other people besides the founders can do it. And it accelerates your journey to scaling up and building a much bigger revenue channel. So before you get there, there are a variety of go-to-market inputs, the prerequisites that I like to call it. So let me just list those off here. And there were a couple of good examples from our prior company. So a lot of people will talk about product market fit, more of a business to business concept, but even so, think about the formulations of the chocolates or the toffees or, you know, all of the different consumer products. You'll be working on figuring out how to make sure that your product meets a really clear and specific need in the market. And that's not as easy as it sounds. Then you're going to have to go about what we call market and industry segmentation and defining what is the ideal customer profile. Because when you're out trying to build revenues, you can't waste your time focusing on customers that don't fit your ideal profile and ultimately won't buy your product. So great example was when Randy Holm talked about the analysis that they did to figure out that a lot of their new business from their online channel was coming from online gift companies. So they figured out, all right, if this is a new customer segment and we know what our ideal customer profile is, we're going to go out and find as many of these as we can. They scoured, again, the internet, social media, things like that. And then they cold called. And I love that because there is no excuse or no substitute for cold calling. But the only reason that they were able to really make the pivot that they talked about is because they recognized through segmentation that a new ideal customer had emerged, and they were going to focus on that as the most efficient source of growth at that particular moment. So it sounds obvious, but a lot of companies don't figure this out early enough. You have to develop your commercial model. When you're selling a consumer product through retail, that's the pricing analysis that you do. But if you're selling things like software or large capital equipment or things like that, the commercial model that you settle on as a business isn't always as obvious as you think. So it'll require some experimentation. You're gonna have to test whether you charge a lot up front and a little on an ongoing basis, or whether you develop a subscription model where you're charging the same amount, every year or every month or things like that. You got to pay a lot of attention to what's the commercial model, and even in some businesses, how you write your contracts to protect your company's interests and also to protect your customers' interest. This notion of sales artifacts, I told you that in this early phase, when it's the founders doing the selling, you're the ones that have to come up with all the marketing brochures, all of the solution overviews, the use cases for your early customers, or in some cases, you'll call those customer reference stories. But, before you have the capital to hire a marketing person to write these use cases for you, you have to do that yourself. So just be prepared. And you're gonna do the same amount of iteration on your sales materials as you've probably done before in the R&D process for your product. You also have to think about the ecosystem that you're playing in, right? This is really important, especially for companies that will be selling through distribution. You got to know who are the other players in this particular ecosystem and figure out how you can align with them. Figure out what strategic relationships you can form with other companies and with other influencers that are selling through the same channels and that are targeting the same end customers as you are. Really well thought out ecosystem strategies they're like gold, right? Because if you can find the right partners, they will echo your message in the marketplace with your target distribution partners and with your target customers in a way that you never could do on your own or with your own marketing. So pay attention to who else is playing in the same space that you are. Find companies that are aligned with your interests and look at forming partnerships that benefit them as well as you. Then finally, the process of demand generation is something that we all know it's hard, right? I mean, we heard from Stephanie that that's probably the biggest challenge that that for sale by owner Handshake is doing right now. Demand generation doesn't happen by accident. You have to plan for it, and you have to decide how you're going to allocate your resources between what I call nets and spears. Think of nets as broad-based marketing messages that you're casting out and hoping to influence a lot of people through mass channels. Throwing spears is actually, this has evolved into very much of a best practice nowadays, where instead of doing broad-based corporate marketing, you're doing much more narrowly targeted, what's called account-based marketing or account-based sales development, because you've identified who's the ideal customer profile. You've then come up with all of the companies that fit that profile. You've actually gone a step deeper and you've used some really sophisticated tools on the internet to identify the names of the people that are the prospects within the companies that fit your target profile. You've got their contact information and you're launching emails and very targeted messaging right at that person you care about. That's this whole science of throwing a spear or account-based marketing. And that's what generates momentum in sales. So pay attention to that up front. Let's see. I think that from here, I wanted to go back to the presentation that I have and show a very simple level set of what's the sales process. Again, think about this. It's different from different industries' perspectives, but in general, when it comes to selling, there's a couple of very repeatable steps in a very repeatable process. And the more you as a scrappy startup or a scrappy founder can think about sales, not as an exercise in personal influence, but as a repeatable process that can be run and run more and more efficiently, the better you'll be able to scale your sales. So here's a generic process. Starts with generating the demand, again, those outbound marketing messages. And then the prospecting is really, think of it as following up on all the marketing messages and campaigns you're running to make sure that you're actually trying to get to the people that ultimately will be the buyers and influencers in sales cycles. Once you get a hold of them, once you get a meeting with them, the process turns to what we call discovery, which means talking to a customer or a prospect about what matters to them, and qualification, which is about what matters to you as the selling organization. So these go hand in hand. You can't sell to somebody if you don't understand or discover what their needs are, but you also have to make sure that you're using your time wisely and qualifying out, as we say in sales, prospects that for one reason or another don't match your ideal customer profile and won't end up buying for you or from you. Then once you've really engaged in these initial conversations with a highly qualified prospect, that's when what we think of as selling starts in earnest, right? So there's this positioning, presenting your solution. You'll be involved in competitive battles if you're competing for shelf space or if you're competing for, a software contract or things like that. That's what most people think of as selling. And it is a very important part of selling, but there's been a lot of work that's led up to that point And depending on how that early stage work has been done by you and by the rest of the people in your company, the selling part is either easier or harder based on how well you've set up the sales cycle. Then, of course, if you're fortunate enough to win, or at least to be selected, you enter the negotiation phase. This is what's intimidating to a lot of people. And it is an art. This is one of those areas where I was a buyer in a supply chain sense before I became a salesperson. I've always liked to negotiate. So you do have to love negotiation to be in sales. But you'll also be, I think, surprised to find out how negotiation is a learned skill, not an inherent quality that someone's good at or not. So the negotiation process is, of course, important, because that's not just about closing the deal, but about closing it on favorable pricing and other favorable terms for you. Then you win the business, the implementation product begins, right? Now that's implementation in a technology sense, but it could just mean the fulfillment in a retail and consumer goods sense as well. Whatever it means to your particular business, you have to focus on making your customer wildly successful, on making sure that they get the benefits of doing business with you and buying your product that they expected and that you positioned for them during the sales process up until that point. If you're good, and if the rest of the company is good in delivering and exceeding against expectations, that's what sets the foundation for expansion. But it's also really important to recognize that the focus on customer success and the expansion phase is just as much a part of the sales process as that early landing the first deal phase. It's just a different set of skills, but this is sales. And so you have to think of it in sales terms. Let me just check. Shannon, is there any questions that have come in from the chat so far? I feel like
there's a really fun question, Todd. If you want to address it now, you can. But
go ahead.
They want to know what's been the easiest and hardest thing for you to sell?
Anything that's early, where it's the first customer, that's the hardest thing to sell. And again, my clients, the two clients that I just mentioned on the first day, it's never easy, right? I mean, maybe you can get lucky and find a perfect need in the market and you have the perfect product, but that's a strike of lightning. So I think that at this point in my sales career, I'm good enough at, in fact, a strength is recognizing patterns. You have to be able to recognize patterns in sales. I think that in general, I can sell most things now because I'm going to use the process that I'm about to show you on the next slide to do it successfully, right? If you think in terms of the process I'm about to share, all of the, both easy and difficult products will be that much easier to sell. I've actually never had something that's easy to sell. It seems like I pick products and companies that are hard, and I like to do things that are firsts in my career. And it's not always the smartest, but that tends to be where I gravitate, right? All right, so let's go back to the slides because, all right, if there's one slide in this whole presentation tonight or this whole talk that's actually going to give you some insight into how to sell, this is it, right? There are lots of sales methodologies and lots of people trying to teach sales to sales organizations. So I've learned many different sales methodologies. The one that I believe is the strongest and the most broadly applicable is called value-based selling, or some people call it solution selling. And if you're going to sell value, learn this one slide. I could spend 20 minutes just on this slide, but let me do it very quickly, right? Before someone ever talks about their product, they have to understand why it matters to the customer. So the light blue 4 boxes up at the top of this graphic talk about, really it's about discovery, like we just said, understanding the before scenario or the current state of your customer and what are the business pains that they're struggling with and the negative consequences of those business pains or those problems that they have today. If you don't understand that, you can spend hours, days, months, years talking about your product and why it's great, but you haven't started first by understanding why the customer has the problem that your product addresses. So therefore, spend the time getting to understand what your customer needs. And then here's where you start to become persuasive in your approach. Help them to understand how, if they choose your product, how their life will become better, how the problem that they experience today turns into a positive business outcome in the future when they have the benefit of using your product or service. All right? That's the conversation that too many people who are just like, stereotype sales folks skip right over, and they just start into, let me tell you why my product is great. Let me tell you, and you can now see the bottom part of this structure here, how my product is great, why we're better than the competition, and let me talk about some customer references and proof points. The problem is you start there and you just haven't validated that you're a business person that understands your customers' needs. This is not an enterprise or a business to business only way of thinking. So let's go back to another example that Randy mentioned when she talked about the new packaging, or the very gift ready. She had a adjective, it's very gifty, right? The packaging for the homemade toffees. And she described how store managers really gravitate towards that packaging. Why? So in an underlying sense, store managers need to have really attractive looking products on their shelf, because that's what drives an assortment that pleases shoppers and that causes shoppers to come into the store. So even though Randy might have or might not have kind of been recognizing that that's what was driving, or that's how the packaging that they've created actually drives more shelf space, it's because it solves a problem for the store manager. And I am certain, because she has a great intuition for sales, I could just tell from her talk, I am certain that she spent time talking to a sales manager about what this will do to help the sales manager create beautiful assortments right at checkout lines and for impulse buys and things like that. And the store manager's listening to that going, I can imagine the positive business outcome if these were displayed right at that end cap, right as a consumer is walking into the checkout. So that's why I say that this value-based conversation framework is broadly applicable to almost all sales situations. Hopefully you guys agree. All right. And by the way, I believe so much in this that you can actually create a paragraph out of that slide that I just showed you. I'm not going to read this to you here, but the phrasing is almost exactly what I just walked you through in a very simple, easy to remember way. I had one sales rep that worked for me that, he got this message, and he took this little picture that I'm showing you and he taped it up to the computer monitor. And when we were all in the office, and I'd hear him making calls and talking to a customer, and I'd hear him saying word for word this paragraph, this set of sentences right here. And I'd be like, good on you, because I knew exactly what he was doing. But I think this is that broadly applicable. So again, you want your one sales lesson? I've just given it to you here. Hopefully it resonates. All right. Any more questions, Shannon, before I move on?
We do have questions coming in, but I think, why don't you go ahead and keep going, and then we'll get some questions at the end.
Who's my timekeeper? How much time do I have left?
You're doing okay. I actually can't, let's see here. I don't have Aaron, how are we doing on timing? I think I would say, at least a couple more minutes.
Okay, good. Let's go. So now we'll go a little deeper into some of the things that, again, just at a high level, I want all of you founders and early salespeople to be thinking about. We've talked about the importance of both discovery and qualification. Tapping into that, I think there's 3 questions that you have to constantly ask ask yourself, and even ask your prospects in every single discussion. Those are, why would the person I'm talking to do anything different than they're doing today? Why would they do something different right now? And then why would they use my solution? By starting with this, why would they do anything different? What you're actually looking for as a salesperson here is their motivation for change. And I believe personally, people only change their behavior in response to one of two emotions or motivations, either something based in greed or something based in fear. Now, how do I define those? The greed motivator is I'm doing whatever I'm doing today. I'm buying whatever products, I'm assorting my shelves with whatever products I'm doing today. And it's just like, that's just happening, right? If I change the products that I'm using today, if I change the assortment, good things will happen. This is the greed motivator. So by changing what I'm doing, I'll have good things happen to me. My sales will go up. I'll get more customer loyalty, things like that. The fear motivator is oftentimes more powerful, but you have to be a little careful with it. The fear motivator says, if I don't change my behavior, bad things will happen to me. So that's when we go back to that, what's your before scenario and what are the negative business consequences? As you're doing that discovery conversation with your customer, you'll uncover things like, well, you know, okay, I'll riff off Randy's comments again, right? Our wholesale channel is tanking, right? And through reasons that are completely outside of our control, but wholesale business is falling off a cliff. If you're coming here with a e-commerce solution for homemade toffee, you might say, yeah, wholesale business is going away and for reasons that are outside your control, and it ain't coming back. What you're doing is secretly reinforcing the fear factor of, if homemade toffee doesn't shift from wholesale to a new channel, retail or online e-commerce, bad things will happen. So those are the two motivations for change, right? Fear and greed. Then the next thing is, once you've found either fear or greed in your prospect, then you got to make sure that they're ready to take action now. So oftentimes you'll hear people in a sales context say, I'm looking for the urgency, the compelling event. So maybe the product that you're talking about is tied to helping them to release a new product that they've said they're going to release in 4 months. And so therefore, if you back off lead time, you say they're committed to releasing a new version of their product in 4 months. That means they have to have a solution to solve their quality problems today, right now. Otherwise, they'll miss their window for release, right? So you've established, yeah, they've got quality problems. So that's probably more of a fear motivator. And there's a compelling event, the product release date, that's the urgency. So that actually tells you that this person you're talking to, or this prospect that you have, is in a position to make a decision now to listen to why your solution is of benefit to them, right? So that's my whole comment about qualification. Make sure that before you start talking about your solution, you've already established their motivation for change and the urgency, or whatever's the compelling event, driving them to do something different now. Because you may be solving a problem, but it's number 27 on their priority list, and they're never going to get to it right now. So that's my qualification discussion. The one last thing I'll do is talk about objection handling, because this is a skill, one that you can take week-long workshops in learning how to handle objections. But it's really important to make sure that when you're in sales situations and conversations, you are looking for objections, trying to understand why your customer or the prospect that you're talking to wouldn't buy or doesn't believe what you're saying or thinks that there's something not correct about your product. You have to be willing to tease out objections so that you can address them. Because I promise you, if you don't get them to come out on the table, they're still thinking them. And these still will be reasons why they don't buy your product at the end of the sales cycle, but you never got a chance to address it. So when you're handling objections, just first of all, look for the reasons, right? Really test the customer constantly on reasons why they would not move forward and would not either sign a contract or agree to stock your product or things like that. Once you've uncovered their objections, You got to step into them. You can't show you're afraid of them, right? In a physical presence, which who knows when we'll be in physical meetings again, but there's a technique called stepping forward into the objection. It's literally something as simple as taking a step forward to show your audience, not only are you not afraid of their objection, but you welcome the opportunity to address it. So step into it, make sure you understand why they're raising this challenge to you or your question. Maybe challenge them, because maybe they're saying something and it's completely not relevant. It's fair to challenge a customer, right? And do it in a respectful and thoughtful manner. But make sure that you really do understand why the objection that they're raising is an important and valid one. Once they've kind of made the case, that's when you got to answer it. So address it and address it directly, either in the moment or promise to get back to them. And make sure that you do, because if you don't follow up and if you don't answer the question that you just validated with them, they'll remember, and that'll be why they don't buy. And then finally, just like everything else, confirm that you answered the objection to their satisfaction. That in a nutshell is objection handling. Questions?
Todd, I love this. Thank you so much. I want to compliment you on your ability to tie your talk back to our speakers tonight. It's so generous and so skillful. So thank you for doing that. And I wonder, do you teach weekend workshops? Because I have a feeling you've caught some people's attention tonight.
I love that question, and I did not plant this. But I will be happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn and share this. But what I will say is that, Jen, and you're funny because for 20 years, while I've held jobs as sales and sales leaders, I've said someday I would teach sales. And I'm well on my way to doing that, here in the local OSU Cascades business program. So I'll actually have an opportunity to teach business students about sales. But I'm also happy to connect with anybody that would like to go deeper.
I think it's your time, Todd. I think you're ready. I think you're ready. I think
you just gave me a chance to plug myself. Thank you.
It's like when the teacher is ready, now the students are appearing. So it's a little bit backwards what's happening here. But how do you celebrate? So when Edco celebrates, Roger rings a giant bell that's mounted on the wall. How do you celebrate your sales?
So I've done physical bells. I've done virtual bells. The first sales job I ever had was at Oracle many years ago. I was a young pup, and we had a whole row of us, and down at the end of the corridor was our boss, our manager. And we used to call the row Murderer's Row, because these were some very aggressive, talented young buck salesmen and women. But our boss, Greg, had a bell on his wall, and whenever anyone would close a deal, we'd hear that bell ring. So I happen to believe you got to celebrate, right? You have to create. We didn't even talk about building a sales team and creating a strong sales culture, but you have to do things like celebrate and recognize and compensate as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's huge. So I want Ian to hear us. Ian, you better be celebrating. Okay, buddy, I'm going to check up on you in the next couple of weeks. So you mentioned that negotiation is a learned skill, and I agree, and I appreciate you sharing that. But how does someone manage to up their game if they're doing it daily? Can you speak to that?
So now you're getting to the answer to a question that I always ask when I'm interviewing salespeople, right? There's two. So I always ask, well, what's the last thing that you bought or the last negotiation that you had in your personal life, right? And I always specify personal life because I find I get much more candid answers. Salespeople are pretty good at telling me what I want to hear. And we've all gone through enough interviews that those answers are well known. But when I ask in the personal side, what's the last thing you bought or sold, the last negotiation? I get great answers about, I had to negotiate with my kids over a dessert last night, or with my teenager over using the car. But it's in the answers to those questions that I start to learn their approach to negotiation and recognize how strategic they are, because a lot of people are not strategic. Because I was a buyer on the procurement side before I became a salesperson, I've always had an extraordinary amount of preparation into my purchase negotiations, right? And there is no substitute for that. I've taken the same approach on the sales side, and it actually serves me well because very often, because of my attention to detail, I'll catch the buying side in errors or kind of mistakes or kind of sloppy work. And you know what? Those are little chits that I'll hold on to until I need to spend that chit in a particular negotiation. But this is a long answer on it. The kind of the summation is most people don't recognize how they negotiate throughout the day and how they actually have more experience that's more applicable to a sales or a business negotiation than they might recognize at first. I happen to have two articles that I've used since 2007 that I use for training my team on negotiation skills. And they're from a very funny source. They're from a men's magazine called Esquire. I actually photocopied it. So it's not a PDF online thing. It's literally a photocopy of an article. But the articles, the two topics are the power of the word no. Just no, not no, blah, 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 blah. It's like the word no. And the power of remaining silent. And so I share those articles with my team, and I ask them to practice these two techniques in their personal life, learning how to say no without even an explanation, just saying no, and then being quiet. And these exercises alone, I've used this with my kids, with everybody in my life, right? When you start to experiment with these techniques in your personal life, you actually realize how much more power you have to control a two-way negotiation. And when you first start using those techniques in real kind of high stakes business scenarios and it works, you're like, oh my God, that was intoxicating. I can't wait to do that again. But it literally starts with just simple techniques that you practice daily in your personal life, and that's how you get better at negotiation. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. That's so powerful. You got me thinking about how I negotiate with my dog at the dinner table in a whole new light. Okay, I have one more question. I could sit here with you all night, but you mentioned that startups don't often build out a sales strategy early enough, or they should be doing so alongside product development. How would you recommend an early stage company go about that when they may not be able to afford to hire for that position?
You know, it's not about throwing money at this, right? It's actually about thinking about it. So many, I've listed all the companies that I worked for, right? All the startup companies. Several of them were founded by very seasoned business executives, and others were founded by, very young, in one case, students that met in graduate school. All founders spend an inordinate amount of time and energy thinking about their product, right? Really working on getting their product perfect. And they actually just don't even think about how they're going to sell that product, about how they personally will sell it. Remember this first phase where they're the ones doing it. And then about as the demand starts to increase, how they'll leverage other resources, not themselves, whether it's, yes, an employee or a part-time employee or a partner with a distribution strategy. They just don't even think about it because they, again, are so focused on product. And so this just starts with conversations. And then once you start thinking about a problem, you're going to start looking around. And remember, I mentioned the ecosystem, right? When you start realizing that you're selling in an ecosystem and other people, much more established companies, are already having successful sales and distribution models targeting the same customers and the same buyers that you are, then you will start to see all sorts of answers to those questions, Shannon. But unfortunately, too many people literally don't think about it in that early stage of their company when they're just focused on product. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So stop just thinking about yourselves, entrepreneurs. Look around.
Right?
Help. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Todd, this has just been enlightening, such a gift for our audience at home to be getting all this very valuable information. So I thank you so much. And we have a tradition here at Pub Talk. We, if I was here in person, I'd be handing this lovely mug over to you. You can see it's as big as, it's bigger than my head. So the next time we're in person, bring it back with you to McMenamins and we'll get you a free fill. But we appreciate you being here so much. And I hope that our people will connect with you because you just have so much to offer us. Thank you, Todd.
You're very kind. Thank you, Shannon. And looking forward to connecting even deeper with the Bend community here, the Central Oregon community, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Thank
it's an amazing community to connect with, as you know, so. All right, my friends. Thanks, Todd. Thanks so much. So that's a wrap for our 2020 Pub Talks. Sad but true. I will miss all of you, but this has been an amazing way to send us off to the end of the year. We will be back at it January 28th in whatever capacity that we can be. So cross your fingers and hopefully there'll be more dessert. Also keep an eye out for Edco's annual luncheon announcement to kick off the new year, and reach out to Aaron Riley if you're interested in a sponsorship opportunity. Thank you all for clicking in tonight to show your support, and thank you for your continued efforts to keep your community safe. Mind the pause, and maybe even try and enjoy the excuse to chill out a little bit so we can all get back to business here in Oregon. I heard that Brian ate all of the Seahorse chocolate and it's about 7 o'clock. So I'm just gonna go to bed and you'll just wake me up in January for our next Pub Talk. Have a safe and enjoyable holiday season, and remember how much we have to be thankful for. This is an incredible community. I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm Shannon Kelly. Take care of yourselves and each other. Good night.